Listen, I have this wife. Her name is Robyn, and she would never let me do anything naughty. As bad as I want to do it.
Coyote Pass is not here. There are no views of the mountains. No major design exists. A forever family on a permanent property is not mentioned. The path comes to an end here. We saw Kody Brown, the self-proclaimed king, govern his large family for years, relocating them from one state to another and from one mansion to another in order to realize his goal. We now realize that this vision was a mirage. Our sources are referring to what you are seeing crew as the last chapter. The final cruel disgrace a monarch and his queen can endure. His realm is now nothing but dust. This is the bottom. Here's the tale of how Robyn Brown and Kody lost everything. Additionally, we have the inside scoop that no one else will. What became to the house worth millions of dollars? What happened to all the money? And how did they find themselves on the edge of nowhere in a borrowed trailer? We have been conducting research, speaking with those on the outskirts, and assembling the chronology of a spectacular collapse that had been developing for months or even years. This is the TLC isn't presenting you the story. Please take a moment to hit the like button if, like us, you have been following this story for years and are prepared for the truth before we get into the startling facts of this demise. Make sure to ring that bell and subscribe to the Sister Wives crew if you're new here or haven't already. For in-depth analyses and unique theories that go beyond the program, you can rely on us. This story is evolving and you won't want to miss a single update. Now, let's get started. We have to go back about 18 months to see how they got into that double wide. Kody suffered more than just an emotional loss when Christine, Janelle, and Meri left. A financial Armageddon occurred. The TLC paycheck, which was split among the 4 women, was the main source of the family's income for many years. After losing 3 of those sources of income, Kody, Robyn, and their 5 kids were left to bear the full financial load. Now we all questioned how they managed to pay for the mortgage on that enormous home, the utilities, the property taxes, the Robyns, Kody's numerous pastimes, and his love with trucks. Our sources say that the answer is that they were unable to. Not even close. However, the patriarch Kody Brown had a strategy. A terrible, self-centered scheme that would end up being the last nail in their financial coffin. We have learned this information from our sources, who were once inside the Brown family's corporate operations. Information about Kody's desperate attempt to become an expert in finance. What little money they had left, he allegedly invested in a new business he named Patriarch Prime Principles. According to Kody, it was intended to be an online membership service, a set of classes and one-on-one coaching sessions for men who desired to regain their male throne and authoritatively guide their families. Consider it a cross between a self-help cult and a multi-level marketing system, with the main focus being Kody's distinct views on leadership and family. He reportedly spent tens of thousands of dollars on online advertising, web developers, and video production for instructional materials. He considered himself to be the next Tony Robbins, a giant of business and a man leader. He was obsessed. Discussed scalable models and revenue streams according to the insider. He genuinely thought that hundreds of guys would be willing to pay $90 a month to discover his trade secrets. Everyone told him it was a bad idea, but he disregarded them. The issue was that no one purchased it. Launching was a disastrous failure. According to our marketing analysis, his public image from the show significantly turned off the conservative traditional men who were his target demographic. There was no ruler in sight. A father who had infamously lost control of 3 members of his family was seen by them. Kody didn't see the irony, but the market did. According to our insider information, despite an investment of over $80,000, the entire Patriarch Prime venture made less than $5,000 in its first half. As Kody was spending all of their money on his ego project, the financial situation on the other side was as dire. We need to discuss Robyn. This is based on the accounts of those who were close to the family at the time. However, they present an image of total financial denial. A steady flow of goods arrived at the Flagstaff residence, according to one person who wished to remain anonymous. She seemed to be attempting to stuff things to fill the emotional hole. According to the source, the designer. New technology, pricey home decor, children's clothes. Anything to keep the appearance that they were still in control. Robyn would spend money they didn't have online as Kody held these heated sessions in his office about his failing company. Based on these reports, we have developed a theory. We believe that Robyn entered a deep state of denial because she was afraid that her life would return to the poverty she had before she married Kody. Her ideal life consisted of a monogamous marriage, pretending to have a good spouse, polygamy, and all the material comforts she wanted. That fantasy was in jeopardy when the other wives left. She reasoned that it must be true if she continued to act as though they were wealthy. Real money was being used to play a risky psychological game. A perfect storm was produced as a result. You had Kody's narcissism, which led him to double down and pour more good money after bad since he would not acknowledge that his patriarch's core plan had failed. Additionally, you possess Robyn's ingrained fear of. She spends excessively to keep up a facade of stability and affluence because of her insecurities. When combined, they constituted a rogue train of debt. Our discovery of public data indicates that a second mortgage taken out on the residence was the first indication of problems. This probably paid off some growing credit card debt and the original investment in Kody's company, but it was only a band-aid solution to a huge wound. They started missing payments within a year. 1 then 2. The letters from the bank, according to our sources. Kody grew increasingly menacing and would hide from Robyn. He continued to believe that Patriarch Prime would succeed. All he needed was a little more time and money. He approached members of their former church in an attempt to obtain loans from acquaintances. But he was already well known. Nobody was going to touch it. The last blow was delivered on a Tuesday morning in early spring, which our insider claims began like any other day. According to reports, Kody was in his office attempting to edit a new ramble. Inspirational video. Ariella was working on a school project with Robyn's assistants. Then the door was knocked on. The neighbor wasn't friendly. The formal foreclosure notice was delivered to them by a county sheriff. They were given 90 days to leave the property. The delusion was broken. The dream was ended. A source who talked to a neighbor described the scenario as one of shock, followed by a yelling match that was audible from down the street. Crazy, Robyn said Kody was keeping the truth from her. Kody, furious and degraded, accusing the original 3 wives. He yelled that they were to blame for this, that they had sabotaged him, and that their public criticism of him had ruined his reputation. He accepted no accountability. Not at all. The following 90 days were a haze of worry and embarrassment. Their credit was ruined, to put it nicely, and they had no money for a deposit on a new property. Their reputation as untouchable in the Flagstaff rental market was tarnished by the foreclosure. They were paraprofessionals in finance. Even a moving company was out of their price range. Here's where the plot becomes much more pitiful. According to our sources, Kody and Robyn needed assistance packing, so they turned to Robyn's family and a few surviving devoted church pals. And it was a painful process. We were given a description of the scene by an eyewitness. It seemed unreal. The massive home was crammed with pricey trinkets. Robyn was completely losing it over her collection of porcelain dolls and figurines of her most treasured experiences. "These are my memories," she said, crying. When Kody was simply gone, I said, "This is all I have." For hours he would withdraw into himself, sitting in his truck and gazing off into space. Then he would return and go into a frenzy, smashing items and flinging them into boxes. The children were afraid. All they did was remain in their rooms. Prue, this is an important point. Consider the contrast. Do you recall when the family relocated to Flagstaff from Vegas? Although it was a family operation, it was a huge, chaotic one. There were the older children. The wives were present, cooperating despite their disagreements. This time there were only 5 frightened kids, Kody, Robyn, and a few reluctant assistants. Kody had spent a lifetime creating and then methodically demolishing this support structure, and it was no longer there. And its absence was being felt by him in the most intense way imaginable. They had no choice because all of their rental applications had been turned down and there were only a few days left until the eviction. They didn't have any savings. Kody's company has a huge debt load. They had forced the whole family to move to Flagstaff a few years ago, but they couldn't afford to live there. The call had to come from Robyn. According to our sources, it was the most embarrassing call she had ever received. She had to call Darlene, a distant relative she hadn't spoken to in almost 10 years. This relative had a plot of land with an old, abandoned double-wide trailer on it, and she resided in a distant area in northern Arizona, roughly 3 hours' drive from Flagstaff. It was formerly occupied by her late father, who had died. It was dilapidated, abandoned, and most crucially accessible. Someone with knowledge of the family interaction told us that the phone call was tense. Darlene, a cousin, did not like Kody. She had seen the show and, like many of us, had strong feelings about it. Under stringent guidelines, she consented to let them rent the trailer. Cash payments for rent were due on the 1st of each month. No justifications. It was a month-to-month lease. Additionally, she clarified, "There is no giveaway here. This is a commercial deal. Please don't bother me." The king and his queen were consequently banished. Not to a new mansion or palace, but to a double-wide trailer that belonged to a doubtful relative. Kody personally drove the rented U-Haul moving truck, which was a jumble of their previous existence. There was no room for the pricey leather couches. Facebook Marketplace sold the opulent dining room table for a fraction of its true value. The majority of their possessions had to be placed in Another monthly expense they couldn't truly afford was the inexpensive storage facility. It was late when they arrived. The headlights of the U-Haul pierced the night and illuminated the depressing, drooping trailer that would become their new residence. The first time the children saw it, according to our source, complete quiet. Robyn Brown's lively, chatty kids were rendered dumb. Already prone to worry, Aurora appeared on the verge of a panic attack. Dayton, who has always maintained his composure, simply gazed, his face a blank mask. Ariella and Solomon, too young to completely understand the extent of the catastrophe, they were simply perplexed and asked their mother where their actual home was. And how did Robyn respond? Our source said that she remained in the truck for 10 complete minutes. She simply sat in the passenger seat, crying uncontrollably, and kept saying the same thing. "Kody, this wasn't the deal. The deal wasn't this." According to reports, the first week in the trailer was an absolute nightmare. For a family, the small area was a pressure cooker. Used to a house that is 4,400 square feet. 2 tiny bedrooms were shared by the 5 children. The bedroom that Kody and Robyn shared was hardly large enough to accommodate their bed. The walls were as thin as paper. Everyone in the house could hear every cough, whisper, and irritated sigh. There was a problem with the plumbing. After one quick shower, the hot water would run out. The air conditioner was outdated and hardly functional. A cruel joke amid the heat of Arizona. The kitchen was a small, claustrophobic space with laminate and deteriorating linoleum floors. 1980s-era countertops. Robyn's personal nightmare was this. In a kitchen that was little bigger than her old walk-in closet, a woman who valued her spotless kitchen, spacious pantry, and party area was suddenly compelled to cook on a sputtering electric stove. The debates were violent and never stopped. The dramatic philosophical debates about family culture that we watched on television were not like this. They were the unfiltered, unsightly arguments between 2 individuals caught in a nightmare they had created for themselves. They quarreled over money. They disputed over space. The children's noise caused them to quarrel. They quarreled about who got to move the handle of the toilet, which was running all the time. Kody became a ghost in his own life after losing both his opulent home and his prestige. He would sit on the rusted metal steps and gaze at the dirt for hours on end. On a dusty piece of ground, his empire had reduced to a 1,200 square foot tin cage. He was not the head of a large clan. He was merely a middle-aged, impoverished man who lived in a trailer. Our hypothesis is that he was completely unprepared for the psychological blow of this demotion. Other from being the legendary Kody Brown, he had no identification. And that identity is no longer there. Now team, something completely else was taking place in another part of Arizona as this tragedy was taking place in another. And this story is so captivating because of this disparity, this amazing difference in fortunes. The OG, Christine, Janelle, and Meri were emerging from the flames as Kody and Robyn were collapsing. Let's begin with the shocking revelation that shook the Sister Wives cast. After being released from Kody's influence, the 3 initial wives established their own media firm. Sisterhood Rising Media is the name that our sources attest to. It is not just a name. It is a statement of mission. They were taking charge of their own story, their own professions, their own financial destinies for the first time. We've all been waiting for their first endeavor, a tell-all. But, however, this was no ordinary memoir. It served as a manifesto. A big New York publisher gave them a huge 6-figure advance. And it's a brilliant title. Surviving a Patriarch Single. Let that sink in. It's an outspoken statement of independence. It is catastrophic according to our sources who have seen early chapters of the work. It's more than a simple account of what happened. It delves deeply into their lives' emotional and psychological dynamics with Kody. According to reports, Christine writes candidly about the years she spent feeling ignored and unwanted, which led to her tragic decision to leave. The family's financial shell game is reportedly broken down by Janelle, the calm and sensible one, who reveals how Kody's caprices and bad choices constantly put them in danger. Furthermore, according to our sources, Meri's chapters are the most startling of all. At last, she provides her complete and unbiased account of the catfishing incident. Detail which apparently shows how emotionally distant she and Kody were even before the show started. The novel became well known right away. In its first week, it soared to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. The tour of the media was a success. The three women made appearances on prominent talk shows as survivors, authors, and businesswomen rather than as Kody Brown's wife. They were confident, well-spoken, and in control. They worked together. How does Coyote Pass compare? The place where so much came from. Dispute and a lot of dashed hopes. With a smart small business loan and her portion of the book advance, Janelle was able to do what Kody was never able to. He got to work building. She was not, however, constructing a home for a polygamous family. She's building something considerably bigger. According to an exclusive notion we've been developing based on rumors from the Flagstaff community. She is constructing the Coyote Pass Empowerment Retreat, a location where women who have escaped challenging circumstances can go for community workshops and healing. She is transforming the representation of her annoyance into a ray of hope for other people. She is creating a legacy in addition to a house. Additionally, according to our sources, Kody and Robyn received their foreclosure notice the same week the first foundation was poured. The cosmic irony is nearly unbearable. Rob and Kody were aware of the OG3's success. The headlines were visible to them. They witnessed the appearances on chat shows. And based on our reports, it was similar to salting an extremely deep wound. It was the final betrayal for Kody. He believed that they were leveraging his name to expand their empire and making money off of his failure. It was something else for Robyn. It served as a lifeline. This leads us to one of the most startling insider stories we've ever come upon. According to reports, Robyn called in desperation as the cabinets were becoming empty and cousin Darlene was clamoring for the following month's rent. He gave Meri a call. The person who informed us of this call characterized Robyn as a woman who is totally broken. We no longer saw the self-assured, emotional manipulator from the show. This woman was at her lowest point. She was crying and expressing her regret for everything. Then she took the unimaginable action. She only requested money. Just enough to get them back on their feet, she called it. What action did Meri take? After years of being ignored emotionally, pleading with Kody for scraps of love, and having Robyn covertly sabotage them. Our source claims that Meri was composed, courteous, and she remained firm. She said, "Robyn, I wish you and the children nothing but the best. I will pray for you, but my financial life is now my own. I can't help you." And then she disconnected. The last bridge was torched with that phone call, the last severance. With the man she had won, Robyn, the favored wife who had all she desired, was now totally alone. A broken, resentful man in a double-wide trailer was the prize. Furthermore, the fact that she was sitting there with a dead phone. Around her, the decisions she had made and the life she had built at the expense of 3 other women fell apart. The monarch was overthrown. The darkest chapter of their story was about to begin, and the queen was a pauper. Greetings from the Sister Wives crew again. In the first section, we described Kody and Robyn Brown's disastrous financial collapse, which was brought on by a botched business endeavor, reckless spending, and the hard financial realities of their broken family. We abandoned them while they were at their lowest, residing in a leased, dilapidated double-wide trailer, totally separated from the 3 original women who are now prosperous. You were mistaken if you believed it to be the lowest point. Based on our unique theories and a patchwork of accounts from many sources on the outskirts, what we are about to reveal depicts a decline so severe it is difficult to comprehend. This is the post-event narrative. The patriarch's ego's last, excruciating death, the disintegration of a family and the daily grind of shame. Tactually, we must go from the abstract to the everyday in order to comprehend the torment that Kody and Robyn were living in. because the actual extent of their decline is shown in the minor humiliations they endure on a daily basis. Take a time to picture their new life's sensory experience. The trailer was an ongoing sensory assault. The odor of dust and outdated plumbing. The window unit air conditioner's constant hum, which hardly affected the unbearable heat. The sensation of the floor drooping a little beneath your feet. This was the physical reality that faced Robyn, a lady who, as many who knew her knew, was consumed by a daily obsession with neatness and beauty. According to our information, a woman is unraveling. Before, Robyn had a luxurious master suite to retreat to, but now she had nowhere to call home. A corner of the small living room served as her office for her long-defunct jewelry brand, My Sister Wife's Closet. Unpaid bills and unsold products were heaped on a dirty card table. Her kids used to. Now they had their own rooms and a place to play all the time. In the cramped space, their youthful vitality is a continual source of annoyance. Reports on the children's well-being are devastating, and they are the story's silent victims. According to reports, adult Dayton was the first to depart. According to our sources, one evening following a particularly heated argument between Kody and Robyn, he packed his bags and left to stay with some college pals. The toxicity was too much for him. Sensitive Aurora and Brianna claimed to have naturally grown more reclusive. Darlene's cousin's neighbor claimed to have seen them sitting outside for hours on end, merely staring and seldom speaking. They resembled the contented girls we watched on television. And the children, Ariella and Solomon, took the brunt of their parents' anxiety. The emotional climate of a household can be gauged by its children. And there was a hurricane roaring in that trailer. The fighting never stopped. There have been rumors of yelling confrontations so heated that her other tenants would phone Darlene, who lived a quarter of a mile away. They quarreled over everything. A $50 grocery bill caused them to quarrel. When the generic cereal was less expensive, Robyn would be accused by Kody of purchasing brand name. Robyn would retaliate, claiming that she was merely attempting to provide her kids with a small amount of normalcy. The price of the truck's gas caused them to quarrel. They quarreled about a $10 copay for a visit to the doctor. Each and every financial choice was a possible statement of war because they were living in a precarious situation with no safety net or opportunities. What about Kody, the leader and man of action? According to our sources, the man was deeply devastated by his failure, but his ego prevented him from accepting it. He was a lion in a cage, roaring at everybody who approached him as he paced the boundaries of his small territory. His days were a pitiful loop of denial and desperation. He apparently tried to work on his patriarch's core business in the mornings while sitting in the shaky kitchen on a rusty laptop table. He would attempt to film fresh videos, but the lighting was awful. His message was more insane than ever and the sound was very small. He lacked self-assurance as a leader. He was a resentful, furious man who was shouting into a trailer park camera. When the truth of his commercial failure became too much to handle, the few subscribers he still had began to dwindle. It is said that he would start looking for a job. What abilities does Kody Brown possess, though? A source who looked at his resume claimed that it was a joke. His employment history consisted of a hazy list of advertisements from 20 years ago, followed by media personality and family manager. He was in his 50s and had spent the last 10 years doing nothing but being himself on TV. He made every effort. According to reports, he applied for sales positions and was laughed out of interviews when they realized who he was. He attempted to enter the firearms industry by using his character from The Gun Show, but he discovered that it was a closed world that didn't believe a reality TV personality are most beautiful. According to reports, he even sought for a shift manager position at a nearby large box hardware shop, but was rejected because he had recent management experience. It was utter humiliation. Till C was his only hope left. We believe that Kody was persistently pitching the network, based on rumors we have received from the production industry. He desired a show of his own. Kody's return. Reborn patriarch. Kody Brown is beginning anew. In the heroic story he imagined, he, the fallen monarch, would rebuild his empire from the ground up. Our industry contacts told us that the network had no interest. Not in a Kody show by himself. The relationship between the women was what made Sister Wives so magical. By himself, Kody was a narcissistic ranter. The majority of the audience had taken sides with Meri, Janelle, and Christine. Networks don't give villains heroic comeback tales unless there is a way to redeem themselves, and Kody and Robyn were the antagonists. Kody has displayed no progress, self-awareness, or regret. He was a dead end. It was a resounding nay. He reportedly went into a multi-day despair after that rejection, hardly leaving the trailer's small, dark master bedroom. The empire of OG3 grows. The burgeoning media empire of the sisterhood was exploding while Robyn was rationing toilet paper and Kody was being rejected. It's nearly impossible to match their success. An indication of their potential after being released from their patriarchal shackle. Surviving a patriarch in the book Unmarried wasn't merely a bestseller. It turned become a phenomena of culture. It was chosen by book clubs, discussed on talk shows during the day, and served as a touchstone for women all around the world who had felt ignored in their relationships. The women themselves read the audiobook version, which took home prizes. A fortune was made when the paperback rights were sold. A movie deal was even discussed. They didn't stop there though. Sisterhood Rising, the podcast they started, quickly became a #1 hit. They would focus on a different subject every week. Financial autonomy, departing, finding your identity in middle age, co-parenting after a divorce, and unhealthy relationships. They were wise, humorous, and real. According to our sources, the advertising revenue was enormous, and they were the women that viewers had always desired them to be. Meri became the COO of their modest media empire by applying the business savvy she had developed with Lula and her bed and breakfast. She was in charge of the strategy, the contracts, and the money. She discovered that being a businesswoman was her calling rather than being a sister wife. He was the leader. It seemed that she had never been happier. Liz's ancestry was flourishing. She was now reinvesting her earnings in Sisterhood Rising Media. The operation's focal point, Christine, was made the public face. She became a media sensation thanks to her contagious enthusiasm and newly discovered self-assurance. She started Cooking with Christine, a popular digital cooking show, and used her social media following to build a lucrative brand with large food companies as advertisers. Businesses. She was residing in a lovely home that she had purchased with her own funds in Utah, near her kids and grandchildren. She was the epitome of a lady who had made the right decision and succeeded. Then there was the architect Janelle. An important occasion was the Coyote Pass Empowerment Retreat's groundbreaking. Every child and grandchild of the OG3 was present. It was a celebration of the mom's creation of a new dynasty as well as a new edifice. Janelle was wearing a hard hat and conversing with, pointing to blueprints, contractors. She had no intention of letting a man dictate her future. She was constructing it out of concrete and steel. According to early plans that our sources have seen, the hideaway is amazing. It will have yoga and meditation studios, a main lodge with a commercial kitchen for seminars, hiking paths all around the site, and tiny, lovely cabins for visitors. Janelle had established alliances with well-known therapists and wellness companies. It was a respectable, adequately funded, and wonderfully thought-out company. Under Janelle's care, the land that Kody had allowed to lie fallow for years was set to become a source of prosperity and healing. For Kody and Robyn, the ongoing public display of the OG3's triumph served as a kind of psychological agony. Every TV appearance, magazine cover, and victorious Instagram post served as a reminder of their own shortcomings. And with each new success, the OG3 seemed to twist the knife, whether on purpose or not. The harshest illustration of this, according to, appeared on a prominent morning show to promote the paperback edition of their book. According to our reporting, the host posed a direct query to them. In retrospect, what was the family's largest financial error? The financial brain, Janelle, responded without hesitation. Honestly, it was the move to Flagstaff. We were financially stable in Las Vegas. We had 4 beautiful homes that were appreciating in value. The choice to move to Flagstaff was made out of emotion and ego and lacked any financial rationale. Finally caused the family's financial structure to collapse by using us as leverage. We never bounced back. That interview was being watched by Robyn and Kody. According to a person who was near to them at the time, Kody acted as though he had been hit. He had the idea for the Flagstaff move. He had marketed it to them as a way to reach their own promised land on Coyote Pass and receive a celestial recompense. Janelle's public and clinical analysis of it as a disastrous financial error was to undermine his full identity as the visionary head of the family. The scene in the trailer was described by the source. Kody just lost it. He grabbed a coffee mug and hurled it, breaking it as he did so. Robyn tried to calm him down, but he pushed past her and stormed out, yelling, "She's lying. They're all lying. They're rewriting history to make me the bad guy." Simply got into his pickup and headed out into the desert. Hours passed while he was away. When the trailer's emotional agony reached a fever pitch, a fresh, more realistic danger surfaced. Darlene, the cousin, was impatient. There had been 2 late rent payments. She had seen the tabloid headlines about the foreclosure, and the neighbors had complained about the shouting. According to our findings, she was a no-nonsense woman who believed they were causing disturbance in her peaceful area of the world. She pulled up to the trailer in her own dusty pickup truck one afternoon. She wasn't there to mingle. She recorded a legal notice of eviction that was notarized to the door in front of them. They had a strict 30-day deadline to leave. The point of no return was this: they were the subject of a foreclosure. Their family had turned them away, and now a double-wide trailer was being used to evict them. There was no place to go down. By all accounts, the ensuing terror was primordial. They lacked the funds to make a deposit somewhere else. They were on the verge of homelessness even if they could find someone to rent to. This is the really startling part of our reporting. Our hypothesis, supported by a few enigmatic hints, and rumor has it that Robyn started selling off the last traces of her previous life out of sheer desperation. She began by putting on her jewelry. According to a person who works at a pawn shop in a nearby town, a woman who fit Robyn's description entered the establishment carrying an assortment of expensive jewelry. Items from David Ure and other designers that bore a striking resemblance to those we've seen her wear on the show. She received very little money. According to this view, the figurines appeared next. A connoisseur of precious moments figurines in Arizona shared on a fan page that a huge collection of them, which came from the same isolated region where Kody and Robyn were residing, was being offered for sale in a bulk lot on Facebook Marketplace. Desperate, the vendor would accept any offer. Was Robyn trying to earn enough cash for a hotel room by selling the memories she had sobbed over throughout the move? The pieces fit, but we can't be sure. In order to survive, she was destroying her identity. This leads us to the last section of our report. 2 universes that were once one are juxtaposed in a striking, nearly cinematic way. The entire saga is summed up in a story about 2 dinners that take place on the same night. The OG3 is located in Salt Lake City on the right. They're at a dinner to celebrate. In order to create unscripted programming, Sisterhood Rising Media recently inked a lucrative first-look arrangement with a major streaming provider. The possibility is worth millions of dollars. They are playing at their best. A close-up of a glowing, laughing Christine, she continues, offering us a glass of champagne to ultimately write our own narrative. Clinking her glass against Christine's, Meri looked polished and determined to create an empire rather than merely a family. Janelle is smiling while using her phone at the table. She apologizes to the others. The contractor was that person. Tomorrow, the main lodge at Coyote Pass will have its roof trusses installed, she says proudly. She raises her glass and says, to create legacies. The trio of females toast the epitome of friendship, achievement, and validation. The restaurant manager has brought copies of their book, Unmarried, Surviving a Patriarch, to their table, and they are signing them. They have made themselves into queens. Kody and Robyn are also eating dinner, or at least attempting to, in the double wide on the left. Robyn is preparing tacos at the stove. Because of how cramped the area is, Kody keeps running into her while attempting to retrieve a glass from the cupboard. There is enough strain for a knife to cut through. Robyn, watch it, Kody. I will have to drop this. Well, Robyn, perhaps I wouldn't be in your way if you offered assistance rather than simply standing there. The dispute gets more heated. Though it's not about the tacos, it begins with them. It has to do with everything. The eviction notice attached to the refrigerator, the humiliation, the failure. I'm attempting to figure out our living arrangements, Kody. You're also concerned about the seasoning. You are solely to blame for this. Are you aware of that? Robyn, your continual needs, your expenditures. Was it my fault? Was it my fault? I gave up everything for you. I trailed you to this Flagstaff wilderness. I stood up for you in front of my kids. The only family I had was estranged by me. For what purpose? For this. To have you blame me for the mess you created while living in a tin can? Kody, this wasn't the deal. You didn't guarantee me this life. It is a brutal, unvarnished fight devoid of all pretension. If the camera of their lives were still rolling, it would show Kody Brown's final working relationship completely falling apart. In a small, oily kitchen, a love story that ruined a family has finally turned into bitterness and guilt. Robyn and Kody are yelling at one another, faces twisted in rage. The spouses of OG3 chuckle while taking selfies at their table. Robyn sobbed into her hands while hunching over the counter. For an adoring fan, Christine and Meri sign another copy of their best-selling book. Kody punched the trailer's thin wall, causing a dent. Janelle displays a picture of the event on her phone to Christine and Meri. Coyote past development progress. They all appear content and proud. Forgotten about a charred taco shell burning in the pan. The OG3's glasses are filled with extra champagne by a waitress. The last shot. Our story's ultimate picture, assembled from the information provided by our sources. Kody Brown sits by himself on his trailer's rusting metal steps. His outburst is finished. The battle is over. There is silence in the home. He's merely staring while clutching a can of cheap beer. Gazing into the darkness. His front yard is an empty expanse of scrub brush and dirt. Nothing is out there. No sister wives taking care of their houses, no busy cul-de-sac, no beloved children running around, and no mountain vista. Nothing at all. The monarch is in his tin castle. He has lost his kingdom. He has lost his wife. His elder kids have taken sides with their moms. He has lost his money. He created the wasteland that is his future. He is the one who created his own despair. He received the one item he had always genuinely desired. Monogamous existence with Robyn, his only true love. It has ultimately cost him everything else. He is the patriarch Kody Brown, and he is finally, totally alone. Dear Sister Wives cast, what are your thoughts? Is this karma at its worst? Is the story we've been following for more than 10 years coming to an inevitable end? Please share your ideas, feelings, and opinions in the comments section below. We will be keeping an eye on every rumor and whisper as this story continues to grow. Thank you for participating us for this in-depth exploration. To ensure you don't miss our next exclusive report, remember to hit the notification bell, like, and subscribe. The Sister Wives cast is signing this.